Like and subscribe in the next 5 seconds, or this will be in your bed tonight. What's a sign that somebody wasn't raised right? They don't take responsibility for their actions. Or worse, they want you to take responsibility for their actions. This is so annoying, and when you say no, that means you are rude. You give them a lift and they leave rubbish in your car. I forgot my candies and trash in a carpool 6 years ago and I still remember it. The driver rushed us out because he made a mistake, to be fair, but my fucking brain won't forget it. This kind of stunned me as a driver for Lyft and Uber. I'd never dream of leaving my trash in a cab or someone else's car. How they treat people from whom they have nothing to gain. Retail will tell you about 75% of people exhibit this sign. I worked in retail. It's more like 20% in my experience, but you remember those more on a bad day. The word no just means throw a fit and be as obnoxious as you can be until you get your way. No does not mean that rules are rules or someone's job might be on the line. They're the important one, not anyone else. The kid that sticks out in my mind was screaming I want something in a store, back when we all, went to stores, not like, I want this particular thing, just something. Buy me something. I must feed my insatiable thirst for stuff. If they're young kids, it's not always a sign that they aren't being raised right. Sometimes kids can just be brats. Now if that behavior carries on into their teens and adulthood, they probably weren't raised rigged. If they make messes in public areas and just wander off, leaving trash in the theater, not flushing, leaving the cart in a parking space. Edit. Forgot the theater thing is the norm in Britain. I meant in general, leaving a mess where it's not supposed to be. The concept of not flushing in a public place is crazy to me. Like, what happened in that person's life for them to feel that's appropriate? Or the mysterious people who smear shit on the walls in Walmart bathrooms? Disrespecting people for doing their job. I worked at an office supply company while I was in college. Let's call it Paperclips. I had a full-time position, inventory specialist, on top of going to school full-time, and I was going through a bit of a rough patch. During back to school in late September, this little girl comes in escorted by what I can only describe as an alpha Karen. The kid started pouting and saying she didn't want to go back to school. I was busy running my cycle count report when AK pointed at me and said something along the lines of, if you don't go to school you'll end up working at Paperclips like this guy. Oh, that made me mad. I don't remember exactly what I said in response, but it went essentially like, Mom, I graduate in 3 months from university less than 1 mile from Paperclips, and have a job lined up at local hospital. I hope she works here or at McDoodles, so maybe she'll learn the respect you didn't teach her. Not nearly as elegant or eloquent at the time, but you get it. The only time I've ever been written up for a customer interaction, and I don't regret it. Edit. This isn't quite as neat of a closer as the above, but I do want to clarify my GM was awesome and didn't write me up. At Paperclips all customer complaints went through the district manager, so the write-up came from the DM. My GM told me not to worry about it because I was leaving soon anyway. I miss that guy sometimes. I work with a great administrative team in my chosen career field now, too, but I don't think I would have survived retail as long as I did without the support of good managers. Yes, manager, I have a complaint. This employee defended herself when I was being incredibly rude and I demand you fire her. What a BCH. Lack of personal accountability. They can never admit wrongdoing on their part. It's always someone else's fault. Yes, totally. And it's often because immature parents don't realize they should model this behavior by apologizing to their children when they, parent, do something wrong. When you don't respect your kids, they can become disrespectful. DS. When my oldest was 2-3, I apologized to him about something. I don't remember what now, in public. What I do remember is the awful woman I walked away from who was scolding me about how parents should never give away their power by apologizing to children. Now, teachers and myself always believe my kid. Why? Cause he always owns up to stuff and apologizes. Not respecting personal boundaries. If you're wondering why someone has these sorts of issues, take a look at their parents. Dear God, I used to be friends with a guy who was like this. I made the mistake of talking him through some difficult things and he took that to mean that I wanted him present 24/7. He'd see that I was hanging out with somebody else and then text me bugging me to ditch that person and hang with him instead because he was sad and lonely. I understand not wanting to be sad and lonely, but you can't make me ditch all my other friendships to fix that. I had a friend who got creepy clingy like that. It got to the point that he followed my Snap Map location to where I was with some friends. They didn't know each other and demanding I hang out with him instead. One rule for me, one rule for you. Parents that mess up on the discipline accountability stage of parenting produce these people. Rules for thee but not for me. Do as I say, not as I do. Who are the guys who spit out their chewing gum into urinals? I see this all the time at work, and I work in a high-end corporate place. Do they think it dissolves and goes down the pipe? The janitor has to pick that out. I had a guy shit on the floor in the bathroom at my work, then apologize because I was working the shift, not my co-worker he hated. People are fucking weird, dude. I worked at a truck stop with 3 bathrooms, a men's, a women's, and a unisex single one in the trucker lounge. The stall in the men's was out of service because people don't understand what a reasonable amount of toilet paper is. Guy comes in, truck bathroom is occupied, goes to men's, stall out of service. Do you A. wait for the trucker room, B. just go to the women's, which is also just a single room and isn't used much, C. shit in the urinal, then come out and complain that I should lose my job because the stall is out of order? They don't have manners or respect anyone. They never see what they do wrong. Are the old I only give respect if it's earned, so I'm gonna be rude to the world, and if it's rude back they are the ERS. Gotta love those talks with people. Are the old I only give respect if it's earned, so I'm gonna be rude to the world. Those Talgui types who say that kind of line are usually woefully unprepared for the "well, what do you think you have done so far to earn my respect?" question. How they act as a boss when their employee messes up. Yelling and belittling shouldn't be your first option. This was what made me respect the absolute hell out of my manager. I made a mistake on a job a while back. Like a big fuck up that cost us a large sum of money. I was fully expecting to get chewed out, and you fuck up again, you're out the door. Because that's how previous managers had treated us. It's no wonder we had a horrific management and employee turnover rate for years. But no, he came over to the car I was working on, looked at what happened, figured out how the mistake was made, and we talked about it for a couple minutes. I was pretty upset about it because I'm usually not the type of tech who is negligent and makes mistakes. So when I do, it profoundly bothers me. He saw that, he listened to what I said, and he went through the process of getting replacement parts ordered for what I messed up. The next morning he came to me again and said, "You know, I was thinking about you last night after I got home and thinking of what you could do to prevent this mistake from happening again in the future." Gave me a few suggestions for the future, and closed the conversation with a pat on the shoulder and a "we won't need to have this conversation again. Brother, I trust you." It was the most meaningful conversation I have ever had with a manager. I got the sense that he really wants to see his employees succeed and grow. It gave me confidence in a moment in which I had none left. This is how you be a leader, not a boss. A leader lends a helping hand and treats you like an equal. A boss treats you like a replaceable piece of meat. They always portray themselves as a victim. Nothing is ever their fault and somebody is always out to get them. I wouldn't take responsibility either if I knew my dad would go batshit at me every time I was in the wrong. Very, very true. The way he came off. I've met people like that before. Hell, I have one in the family, and they are a pain in the ass to be around. How they treat animals and people without power. I remember hearing as a kid about a Native American belief that's really stuck with me. After you die and as you're entering the afterlife, you must cross a bridge. This bridge is filled with every animal you had a personal encounter with in your lifetime, and together as a whole they decide your fate, whether or not you can cross the bridge to heaven. This was the first and only time I've heard of your fate being decided by animals. Great. There's no way those mosquitoes are going to forgive me. They litter. If you throw your shit on the floor, then you have 1, no respect, and 2, you're tramp. We went for a trail walk that leads out toward a dam and some rock formations with many waterfalls. Broken beer glass was strolled along the entire trail, an hour-long walk. Guys, and the amount of garbage at the falls was honestly mind-blowing. Like someone had brought 10 or so full bags and just busted them open all over the place. It's one of few natural areas in that city, and it just sucks so much that people care so little. It doesn't take much effort to just not destroy a nice thing with your litter. The internet has definitely made hidden gems a thing of the past. We never used to see the kind of litter we do now on trails. It's a travesty. I'd say on the other end of the spectrum, if someone is anxious about simple social interactions, like sharing their opinions, this is a big indicator that somebody's parents' temper had a hair trigger. Yup, I had severe social anxiety for a while, had no confidence to do anything on my own, and was very reclusive and never asked my parents for everything because my dad would explode at anything and everything and rarely say yes to anything. I tried getting around it by asking my mother because she was kind, but she had a habit of saying ask your father, which instantly made me give up. I had no motivation and no confidence. Luckily things have changed for the better, but it has taken a hell of a lot of work that wouldn't have been needed had my father just been kind when I was younger. Edit. Since a lot of people are asking, I'll do my best to explain how I got better at it. I'll start off by saying I still have a tiny bit of anxiety that hasn't completely disappeared, but it's a ton more manageable. I'll say that I believe my job helped me feel better. I work in customer service, which seems like a crazy place to go when you have social anxiety, but it was the only place I thought might take me at the time. I was forced to deal with social interactions constantly, and honestly some were quite positive and occasionally there was a negative reaction. I focused on just trying to do my best, and whenever a situation got kind of scary I'd pass it along to a manager. After a while they became easier to handle and I became more confident in myself little by little. My confidence started to become acknowledged by others and I was offered a promotion. Taking this precaution put me more out of my comfort zone, but I felt like I was definitely in a better place than when I started. And it continued. This obviously isn't a path everyone with social anxiety can take, but I feel like in a smaller way, by doing something you maybe enjoy or are good at and showing it off to others or having it acknowledged by others can slowly build your confidence enough as a person that interactions become much easier. It took me like 8 years to finally feel comfortable. I can't promise any sort of change overnight, but I can say that it does get easier over time, but it can definitely involve making yourself uncomfortable, even if it's only a little bit. I know a few of these types of people, and they tend to have one or more of the following traits. They are disrespectful to everyone, not just authority figures. Watch how they treat customer service or retail staff. They have no manners in general, or only use manners when they absolutely have to in order to preserve their own interests. They are cruel to people and or animals, and laugh at the suffering of others. They are selfish. They destroy things, steal, and cheat. Some also commit more serious crime. They expect handouts from everyone. They shirk hard work and responsibility whenever they can. They complain a lot, and constantly act like they are a victim. They are terrible parents to their own children. If the president ever wanders off onto Pennsylvania Avenue in a senile, demented stupor in the dead of night, this would be the perfect description to use on the proverbial lost dog signs we'd have to put up to find him again. Why on earth would we be trying to find him? Someone that does things to intentionally hurt another person's feelings after they've expressed that certain thing hurts their feelings. Person 1. I get angry if someone touches my hair. Person 2. Touches it, haha. Are you angry? Person 1. Smacks person 2 in the face. Person 2. What did I do? What's your fucking problem? They never say please or thank you. My parents were super sticklers for rules and manners growing up, but they never say please or thank you in restaurants. It is so embarrassing eating out with them. I have seen that several times. The biggest example that comes to mind is a military family I have known my whole life. By no means am I ragging on military families. It's just where this particular family derives a lot of their identity. They have always been big on yes sir, yes mom, no sir, no mom. Their kids all grew into super respectful, awesome adults. But the parents, rude as hell to waitstaff. I don't enjoy being out with them, and my family always felt we had to compensate with a bigger tip, since they are nightmare customers and insulting tippers. As an adult, I choose to spend time with their kids but not the parents. My parents are starting similar distancing. They leave trash in theater and state that it's the employee's job to clean up their mess. I never thought of this before, but this is the absolute correct answer, Imo. You literally walk past trash cans on your way out and you would be carrying out less stuff than you even brought in. So you obviously can carry it. And not because someone's jobs includes cleaning up the mess customers leave, you are gonna leave a mess. Of course if it's dirty they are gonna clean up. That's their job. But cleaning up after you isn't it? Like, someone's job is to pick up murdered bodies. Does not mean you can't murder people, FFS. They whistle, snap their fingers, or make that PS sound to get their server's attention in a restaurant. I snapped my fingers to get a teacher's attention once in middle school. She barked at me something fierce. I learned my lesson. Same here, except when I was younger I had a habit of adding sound effects to my actions sometimes. So one time I raised my hand with an ascending whistle sound to accompany it, and the teacher got angry at me for trying to get her attention as if she were a dog. LOL. That was not my intention, but I learned my lesson. Not putting the cart back at the grocery store. My dad forced me to leave it once because he had an adult tantrum at a store. I feel bad when I think about it, LOL. Edit. Okay, short story time. Too long, didn't read it end. My dad and I were once at a grocery store and the entire shopping trip went fine until the end. My dad and I decided to go to the self-checkout. The machine worked just fine. Then I scanned an item. It was the last item to be scanned. That could both be weighed or scanned via barcode. But I chose to weigh the item instead. One of the attendants monitoring the self-checkout area said something along the lines of, "You can scan that item as well," and he flipped his lid. He was basically being a male Karen but didn't ask for the manager. I don't remember what he said exactly, but it was embarrassing. Then my dad decided to grab all of the stuff we got and leave the store after we checked out. He said he didn't need the cart while carrying everything he bought. It wasn't but 5-6 bags, and he told me to leave it at the register and said to me, "Just leave it. Smarty at the register can put it back. If anyone is about to ask why didn't you take the cart anyway?" At that point he most likely would have yelled at me for doing so. Too long, didn't read. My dad flipped his lid over a clerk doing her job and told me to leave a shopping cart at the register. Still feel bad to this day. On another side of that, store managers need to place the cart corral somewhere near the disabled parking. You're counting on the people who've probably leaned on their carts as one would a walker for 20 minutes to an hour in the store to walk an additional half a block to put it away and another half a block without it back to the car. Turning conversation back to themselves at all cost. Being a good listener is a sign of a person raised well. Edit. To clarify, I don't mean quiet or a doormat. I mean generous, empathetic, supportive and curious. Good follow-up questions without making it about oneself, etc. I'm gonna answer this literally. As a teacher, I see there's a lot of different values that go into parenting styles. Some that aren't my values but still raise a productive, responsible, and successful child. But there is evidence of bad parenting from a child development point of view. Is extra clingy and implies or outright states you're their sole custodian for their well-being. Is incredibly aggressive about getting their way or being correct all the time. Responds to slights or inconveniences violently. Is extremely withdrawn and doesn't care for self. On the flip side, is very self-sufficient from a very young age and also has anxiety and or depression. Seeks attention constantly, not just a lot, but constantly. Obviously, the child abuse signs are indicators of not being raised right, and only apply here to actual children. But it never hurts to remind people of them. Has suspicious bruising injuries on body where it's not normal to have injuries. X. Bruised forehead and skinned knees are normal on toddlers. Black eyes are not. Carefully covers parts of the body that would not normally be covered. X. Won't roll up sleeves even a little on hot days, which, bonus, is also a sign of self-harm. Is inappropriately sexual and or knowledgeable about sexuality for age group. Is weirdly afraid to be alone with another person. Not just, I don't want to go home because my dad's gonna give me a whooping for starting a fight at school. But something like finding a lot of excuses to not hang out with an older cousin ever. Is often dirty, stinky, soiled, is often underfed. Tells you they are being abused. I took this way too seriously. But there you go. Edit. People are commenting with personal situations that involve the warning signs of child abuse I mentioned, but on child abuse in their case. This is what makes it so hard to detect. Kids are always bruised, stinky, and secretive. What's important is to keep an open mind and sort of observe a pattern of signs and behaviors. If alarm bells go off, our first impulse is to explain it away, but making an anonymous tip is not as harmful as people believe. In my experience, nothing is even investigated until the reports pile up unless you physically witness the abuse. Edit 2. Just to be clear, the first list just means the parents or household should be better to optimally encourage the wellness of a child. The second is of warning signs of abuse. Oh my god, I am so dumb. I was like, what is underfed? I've never heard that before. Looked it up and it was underfed. Oh sweet Jesus. I was reading it like underfed. Like derp. Which is what I am. In their spare time they dress up like a bat and beat up the mentally ill. Wayne Manor has a lot to answer for. They apologize for every little thing. Probably a sign that they grew up with abusive parents that got mad over anything and everything. I'm trying to break that habit RN, and oh my god, does it take such a huge amount of willpower not to apologize. We know someone that won't get a checking account direct deposit because the banks just steal your money, and he takes his paycheck to a check cashing payday loan shop instead. We also know his mom, who is in her mid-40s and on her third bankruptcy. Edit. Not discounting the likelihood that mom destroyed his credit long ago and still would empty his account today if given the chance, which still falls in the raised wrong category if you ask me. But we're talking about a 20-year-old guy living with mom, no rent, no car / no kids, that shouldn't have any substantial debts, expenses of his own to make overdraft fees an issue. Financial management in general. They don't know how to do normal household stuff. I've seen people that don't even know how to make their own coffee or clean a toilet. Edit. I only mentioned making coffee as an example. If you don't know how to make coffee because you don't drink it, that's fine. God, that's me. My mum won't let me touch anything because I don't know how to do it. Well, no shit. You never taught me and you don't believe I googled it? Can't wait to move out and feel like a functioning human. My mom is exactly like this. God, I remember like last week I decided, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna cook something, and if it fails, who cares? So I proceed to go tell my mom that's what I intend to try out. I know it seems dumb to even tell her in the first place, but if I hadn't then she'd let all hell break loose. And she just was like, no. Like for fuck's sake, I can literally do everything basic. Vacuuming, cleaning, whatever you need. But I have never cooked, and she is the sole reason as to why. Maybe this is embarrassing to put out there, but frankly I don't care. Edit. Oh, and she also never taught me anything because it was always just quicker and easier on her own. But then whines and beats chest when I don't do anything. Sigh. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more interviews.